We bring in our college hoops experts joining us live from Madison Square Garden, co-hosts of the Eye on College Basketball podcast, Matt Norlander and Gary Parrish. Guys, that really was a fun night overall there at the Garden, but starting with Kentucky and Duke. Norlander, what was your biggest takeaway from that game we just watched?
I think it's obviously Paolo Banchero, the five-star freshman at Duke, who I thought could have an incredible debut, one of the best debuts in Blue Devil history, and he lived up to it. Very much looked like a guy who, can be the #1 pick in the 2022 NBA draft. He's 6'10", 250 pounds, but doesn't play like it at all. He was 7-11 from the field, 21 points, 7 rebounds, had a couple of blocks, and just proved to be very early and then often throughout the game by far the best player on the court. Maybe not the most productive. Oscar Tshiebwe had a monster night statistically, but there was no doubt from the moment this game tipped off that Duke had maybe the better team, but definitely the best player, and that showed up through those 40 minutes.
Yeah, when it comes to this game and tonight, I'm going to just extend on the Duke thoughts here with GP. I think that we might have underrated Duke coming into the season. I don't want to greatly overreact to one game, but Kentucky made a nice push. The Garden was rocking. It felt phenomenal to be back in this kind of environment. So great for college basketball. And then Duke separated again down the stretch and kind of took the life out of UK there. Trevor Keels, like Banchero's the headline performance here, but Keels actually led the team in scoring. And I mean, he looked like a linebacker out there. He is going to be a matchup problem. So between Banchero and Keels, I do think, having seen Keels play now in person, they're going to have a 1-2. And I don't know if Keels will wind up being the #2 guy, because Banchero is clearly going to be the best player on this Duke roster. If Keels winds up being that #2 guy instead of, say, Mark Williams, who had a nice night, or anyone else, AJ Griffin, we barely saw for all of 10 minutes, Keels could be a head-to-head matchup, a mismatch for opponents going forward there. So yeah, we might have underrated Duke, but after coming off not making the tournament, that's understandable. But this was a big announcement for the Blue Devils, and you heard it here first. Coach K's final season with the Blue Devils.
Breaking! We appreciate it. All right, but hey, let's talk about that first game taking place where you guys were third-ranked Kansas, Michigan State. Jayhawks topping the Spartans 87-74. And Michigan State, GP, you mentioned it, they were the only unranked team there at MSG. What did you think of the performances from those teams?
Well, coming into it, one of the most interesting things about Michigan State was going to be this new backcourt of guards they were going to start in Max Christie, the five-star freshman, and Tyson Walker, a transfer from Northeastern, and they both just were wildly unproductive in this game. Didn't really do anything. Walker was hard to even notice, proving once again that when you transfer up, from a place like Northeastern to a place like Michigan State, it is very difficult to have comparable production at this level. And he was just a complete non-factor. And if you'd have told me before the game that Max Christie and Tyson Walker were going to be non-factors for the most part in this basketball game, I would have predicted exactly what happened, which is that Kansas would win easily. And I think what was most impressive about it is that it wasn't one of those situations where they built a big lead up early and then held on to it, or, ran away from them late. They won the first half by 6 points, the second half by 7 points. They just controlled from start to finish and then got a monster performance from a veteran, a captain, Ochai Agbaji, who Norlander had made the case several times on the Eye on College Basketball podcast in recent weeks that he thought he would be KU's best player, not Remy Martin, who was voted the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year. And it is just one game. We'll see. But through one game, Agbaji looked like he might be a KU star.
Yeah, for sure. That was my takeaway from this game specifically. Agbaji, I spoke with Bill Self afterward, and, well, first of all, Agbaji admitted to the media in the post-game presser that he came very close to leaving Kansas to pursue the NBA dream, and it was a really, really tough decision. It seems like he made the right decision. He did not get the feedback he was looking for. He would not have been drafted, and it would have been a long road. He needed to work on a few things like his aggressiveness, his ability to be a bit more of an alpha. We saw that materialize on Tuesday night. Agbaji was the best player on the floor, and he's a really good story. Self told me that the one thing you should focus on is he drew 7 fouls, and the idea that Agbaji would have even drawn half that last season was just not. He did not have that in him. He has really built out his game, and he is going to be the most important player for this Kansas roster. Who, let's be honest, yes, they're highly ranked. They were the most highly ranked team in this building on Tuesday night, but they didn't get a ton of buzz heading into the season. And I think a win like this, giving Michigan State, 12, 13-point loss, and winning the way that they did, because even Self told me, he said, I don't really quite know my team yet. He was specifically mentioning, like, when I got to take our 6th or 7th guy off and I got to make a substitution, I don't know yet what's going to be the best chemistry makeup out there yet. So that was interesting to see that they scored 87 and won easily, but even Bill Self admitted to me this was far from a perfect performance for KU. But Agbaji, near perfect for him, and a great debut in his senior season.
Overall, a great set of games, though, really kicking off the new season there at the Champions Classic. Matt, overall, big picture takeaway, what is it for you from what you saw on Tuesday night?
Well, the Duke stuff is big, and I understand, like, Duke usually is the big headliner. I will stick with that. This is a team that I was skeptical of being capable of winning the national championship going into the season. I am already reconsidering that. Banchero, GP and I have seen play in person plenty of times. He was marvelous to watch, but really when you look at how big Duke is, they played well. Now, some of that might have been Kentucky. Does Kentucky want to have a situation where they're asking Severe Wheeler to be on the floor for 38 minutes when no one else is out there for more than 31? I don't know. Kentucky, I think tonight might have been a little bit more about what Kentucky's got to figure out than overall Duke's dominance. But the big takeaway for me is, yes, Duke is clearly should be the preseason favorite, going in to win the ACC. And now we need to consider them a title contender because Banchero is very much the real deal. And as we said recently on the podcast, Drew Timme was the preseason National Player of the Year. I'm telling you, I will not be surprised. It was my pick. Paolo Banchero could be the National Player of the Year by the time we get to March.
Kansas was tremendous tonight. The story was Duke. The night belonged to the Blue Devils. And it was interesting, usually when fans come to an arena to watch a Duke basketball game, you're not going to lay your eyes on Mike Krzyzewski until about 3 minutes before the starting lineups are announced. On this night, he was out at halftime of the Michigan State-Kansas game, being publicly honored by ESPN because this is his last game to coach in the Champions Classic. And so Mike had, spent basically every week since he announced his retirement is coming at the end of the season, explaining to anybody who would listen that he's not going to spend much time focusing on the final year of his career. He's just going to coach his team. Tonight was a reminder that that's impossible. He has no choice. It's going to be in his face every time he coaches. At halftime of the Duke-Kentucky game, on the scoreboard, the fans here in the building were watching what appeared to be a Zoom call, pre-taped, between John Calipari, Tom Izzo, and Bill Self, just discussing the impact that Mike Krzyzewski has had on the sport of college basketball. And so it's inescapable that this farewell tour that Mike is on is going to be a prominent headline every game that he coaches. But once the game got going, the story became, at least in between the lines, Paolo Banchero living up to the hype and looking like somebody who's going to be the 2022 NBA draft #1 overall pick. I had written on Tuesday morning that it's not crazy to think Mike Krzyzewski's final games as a Duke coach could come in New Orleans at the Final Four. And after watching the Blue Devils start 1-0 with a convincing victory over Kentucky, I believe it more than I did even when I wrote it.
It's going to be a fun storyline to watch all season. Guys, great stuff. Thank you for getting our college basketball season started. Matt Norlander, Gary Parrish. Make sure to download and subscribe to the Eye on College Basketball podcast. You get more from GP and Matt in there. They're breaking down everything you need to know as we kick off a new season. Download and subscribe today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.